welcome to Sonic Talk number 373. That's a sort of balanced number in some kind of way. And yes, indeed, we had a week off last week, or I had a week off live from a live show. We did post the Roger Lynn interview with Lidstrom, which seemed to go down very well. In fact, someone on Synthtopia, when they embedded it, suggested I should be knighted, and that I had in fact turned down a knighthood because of the yearly cost of being a knight. Which was nearly right. It was, I think it was to do with when I was offered a fellowship of the Royal Society, and it was just going to be about 600 quid a year, and I wasn't feeling too flush at the time. So, nearly right, but yes, quite good fun. Anyway, welcome. Back from my holiday. I was in France. It didn't rain all that much, fortunately. And I have a couple of guests. Before we go anywhere, though, of course, I should say there is no show next week. I was having an interview planned for recording tomorrow, but after months of negotiation, it fell through at the last minute. So I was hoping not to have a break in service, but there will be 1 week out next week. So no show, no pre-recorded show. Good news is, however, because we had a pre-recorded show last week, our sponsor, who is Isotope, will be joining. Well, we've got two prizes to announce today, and another prize to another competition to announce where you can win Brake Tweaker, but more on that later. But obviously, by mentioning Isotope, I can also let you know that Isotope are in fact sponsors of Sonic Talk. So let's see, who have we got with us this week? We're going to go straight to we'll go to Gaz Williams, Sans Hat. Gaz Williams, of course, bass player, producer, attic musician, and songwriter, and all-around audio and music and sound guy. How are you, Gaz?
Yeah, good, thank you. Been having a very busy time. In fact, I've just been quite a naughty boy, actually.
Uh-oh. Bought something. Oh, my Lord. You got a new waste paper bin?
Yep.
Wow. What? So You've got a new Mac Pro?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, so you must have... so what... I noticed it's not actually plugged in or anything. Is that actually a functioning one, or did you just like having the object about your place?
I'm configuring it at the moment for taking over in my studio, so I'm still using my existing machine. But I think looking forward to life with this little thing. I've been on the data crusade, trying to sort out the massive multi terabytes of data. But I've got to be honest, I've been using Gobbler, and Gobbler, you get it with the free one. You get this thing which it categorizes all your hard drives, and it does it in a really clever way. It looks for project files, like, for instance, it'll look for Cubase, Pro Tools, Ableton, Reaper, all sorts of things. And once it's looked at your hard drives, it kind of just puts a single icon with the track title, and all the assets are essentially embedded within that one title. Only purely from a sort of a categorizing point of view. But I've gone through all my hard drives, categorized, and now I can do these kind of searches. I can just search for Reaper projects on one particular drive, and then they all come up. It's a brilliant system.
So does it give you sort of online cataloging for your system locally, so you don't need to have the remote stuff? This is just a byproduct of having Gobbler, right?
Yeah, it's a byproduct, but I think it's actually a really, really nice thing. I recommend people just download it just for that, because it's really handy. You get to see where, I don't know, like maybe other people are a bit like me, use lots and lots of drives, and things tend to get a little bit
no.
It helps you organize everything. And I think I'm going to use Gobbler as well as a backup service as well. I was mentioning that just because you get a 5 gig free but you also get this app. So I think it's worth it.
Well, I did actually try and negotiate a sponsorship deal with Gobbler because I think it'd be a really good fit for us because obviously it's a good system. Maybe I'll point them in the direction of this and use it as some kind of leverage because I think that would be good. So, Gaz, what configuration of Mac Pro did you go for?
It's just it's the base model really, which I think is a quad core 3.7. Yeah, I think so. Just 12 gig of RAM. So it's pretty much vanilla at the moment. But I've done some tests on it though, and it's smoking. It's smoking.
Nice. I'm
Yeah.
just going to restart the streamer because people are having difficulty. It's stuttering. So let me just quickly check.
Yeah. Yes, a new Aphex Twin album announced. Big news. Quite excited to hear what he's going to come up with.
Yeah, there's been a lot of promo for the new Aphex Twin thing, hasn't there? There was a blimp over the UK, over London somewhere. I must admit, a glitch is not something that is my favourite kind of thing because it just feels like, to me, what people do is sort of program up a bunch of machines, let them run, and then just choose bits, and it's very unconsidered to my ears.
We don't know if Aphex is going to do that, though, do we?
No, I suppose
he's
not.
Always ahead of the curve, isn't he? So, but no releases for 13 years, not under the Aphex Twin name. So, he's got a lot. He's got a lot going on this, really. So, I'm most intrigued.
Reload page. Hold on, I'm just telling you. Right. We've also got another guest. We'll say hello to Mark Tinley. Hello, Mark. How are you? Looking very Spanish today. Look like you might be about to swashbuckle or something, whatever that may be.
Excellent. Yeah, musketeer-like, perhaps.
How are you? Mark Tinley. Well,
I'm all right.
Let me introduce you. Mark Tinley. Sorry.
Go on, then.
Mark Tinley, of course, sound artist, creative thinker, all about town, audio guy, theorist, all sorts of those things. Anyway, Mark, back to you. marktinley.co.uk.
I'll tell you what I've been doing. Do you remember me saying that I was making some Oracle cards? These ones. I finished making them. And it's called The System. And there's like 40 cards in a deck. And then I had this wonderful idea that if I'd got 40 cards in a deck, they would need interpretations. So I've written a book of all the interpretations. And my son's designed the logo for me. And then I thought, well, if I've got a book and I've got some cards, I should really write some music to go with it. So I've written 40 pieces of music, and it's on an album. And you were just talking about glitch, and my album is very much glitch, I think. And there was a lot of decision-making processes about which parts of it or how I was going to put it together to make it kind of fit this whole story. So the deck of cards, 40 cards, tells a story, and there's a story arc to it. And then the music sort of follows that as well, in my mind. I mean, but you can get the book free today on Amazon.com if you've got a Kindle. And you can listen to the album on Spotify, or you can go and listen to it on Bandcamp. And I'll put a URL in the room in a minute, so people can go and listen for themselves and decide whether or not it's glitch and whether or not I've made the right decisions about which bits I've used. I used Ableton to complete the whole project, which I've not done before. And I got really into the Max for Live object. So I wrote a piece of music and then I played around with the key signature of that piece of music. So although the melody that runs throughout the whole album is the same, it changes modes and scales quite a lot. So it changes the mood by changing the mode. So it's kind of weird because you think you're hearing the same melody all the time, but then you're not. You're hearing like a dark, twisted version of the melody. And I did it just by simply sort of manipulating the stuff, the original piece of music that I'd written. And it's got lots of scary music box in it as well.
Interesting. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Looks like the stream might be bonked. I'm sorry about that, everybody. It's very hard to actually become a streaming engineer while sitting in front of a mic. So it is recording, and it'll be up a bit later on. So sorry if you've missed the live stream, but you'll just have to wait a couple of hours, and the video stream will be online as well as the MP3. Anyway, let's get on to some topics. I was going to start with let's start with this one. This is the Mendelssohn Effectorium, which is an installation in Leipzig. I think it's been around for a little while, but Peter Kern on Created on Music did a fantastic piece, an interview with Martin Bax of Aconica, the people who put it together. And this is, well, just take a look. It's astonishing. Each of these posts represents a group of instruments in the orchestra, and there's a leap motion in that, which is controlled by the movement of the baton. So you can speed up and slow down, you can change the atmospherics of the room. Looks absolutely fantastic, this. I would love to do it. I won't play the whole thing. So, I don't know, my partner is always saying how much she'd love to conduct an orchestra, but I don't think she's got the bottle to actually stand up in front of 96 people and kind of be in charge. So something like this would be awesome. And I really like the look of it. It's all put together with Ableton Live and Leap Motion and OSC and clips and various different impulse response reverbs. And it looks it's just great fun. Gaz, I can just see you with your hair flying akimbo, you know, just kind of, and maybe a slightly torn steampunk style composer's outfit, just going for it.
Yeah. I mean, that thing looked really good. I really liked the fact that all of those columns had speakers.
Oh, he's gone again. Mark, how about you? How did you find? This looks pretty awesome, doesn't it? I mean, you're muted. It's going well. Just 1 week off.
I've always wanted to conduct an orchestra, but I think I'm probably in the same boat as Jane. I don't think I would feel intimidated by 100-odd people all sitting there with their knowledge and their instruments, knowing that, you know, I probably don't know anything like as much as they do in terms of music theory. So I'd probably be thinking, oh God, how am I going to tell these people what they should be doing? But I like the idea of it being digital, and I like the idea that each of those columns had a different speaker on top of it, because that creates a real sense of space, I guess. I'd like to try it.
It would be great, wouldn't it? And I just think it'd be absolutely awesome. I think the thing about it is that this, I mean, as they said in the interview, which Peter Kerr did a fantastic job of sorting it. Hold on, I'm just trying to get Gaz back onto full screen before I come to him. Excellent. Nothing seems to want to work today. That's good. Hold on. Probably a good job the technology is actually having a week off next week. There we go, Gaz. Sorry, you were sort of cut off mid-flow. It happened last time you were on, I think. You just kind of went bonk.
I hope it's not me. I've got a good connection here.
You know what I think it is? You know that what BT are doing, the same as many other people, what they do is they create these, they use your router to extend the range of their free Wi-Fi. So these are a tiny bit of the bandwidth for other people to use, as far as I understand. So maybe that's what's going on. We've just been... But anyway, I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Well, I was going to say a few things that Mark said. I mean, for instance, that the fact that there's a speaker on each of those columns would give a really great feeling of... I think the audio would have a great three-dimensional quality. So I think what you watch on the video... it's very interesting, but I think to experience that, I think would be really cool. I think I've got the Leap Motion here, and there's been it's something that's been constantly updated, and the latest version of it seems to be much more sensitive as well. So I think this is quite an interesting use of that technology, really, because like we've talked before about the Leap Motion, it's very interesting technology. It's just finding the right applications for it, and this is a perfect. It's a
It is,
perfect
isn't it?
one. Yeah. So I was actually thinking, wow, I wonder if there was some way to use a conducting like a baton for your own projects, and if you had a Leap Motion, it might be quite a nice thing if you're working with MIDI, just to just to conduct your own music. I think, yeah. I mean, yeah. There's many things that's interesting about this. Do you know if is it a permanent installation?
I'm not sure. It's in Leipzig. I would hope it would be for. I imagine something like that wouldn't be permanent, but I would hope it would run for a real, certainly a certain amount of time, because it, as only one person at a time can use it, there's going to be
That's the
quite a
point.
queue, isn't there?
And, but it's interesting, these installations. Incidentally, at the weekend, I was at the Green Man Festival, and I had a go of the big 909, the huge 909.
Oh, did you? Cool.
Which was quite fun. But yeah, that was cool. Sorry, that was a deviation from the topic there. But yeah, I think again, as I say, the Leap Motion element of this is the thing that really interested me. So I'm keeping my eyes very much glued on the developments of that then, because again, I haven't found any use of mine yet.
Yeah, I know, that's the thing. This is a very, very specific problem being solved by Leap Motion and some clever programming. For those of you who want to see it, there's an article on Create Digital Music by Peter Kern, where he's interviewing Iconica, the people who put the whole interactive thing together. And there's a really interesting piece and just sort of general information. And he's sort of saying you can't wait to get down there. But you can, it just looks like such a lot of fun. And look, there's what's really interesting. I don't know if anybody can see this. Obviously, the live streamers can't. Is that these little towers have sort of level meters, and each one is a point source for one of the instrument groups of the orchestra, and that just makes it look an awful lot of fun to me. Defo. Well, we'll struggle. I mean, once again, this is not streaming live, so the chat room is probably going to be a bit of distraction, certainly if people are asking me to fix it, because it's impossible to fix while I'm actually doing the show, so I'm sorry about that, but it will be on live. So, let's have a look and see what the next topic might be. Oh, sorry, Mark.
Oh, no, I can't talk to the chat room anyway, can I? Because they can't hear me, right?
No, I'm afraid they can't. Oh, okay. So, right. So, yeah, next topic is, this was via you, Mark, which was the 12 things you should never say to musicians, which I thought was a good spot. This is on Digital Music News by a chap called Ari Herstand. And so, yeah, the 12 things that you should never say. I mean, obviously, there are some key ones here. Any of these particularly resonate with you, Mark? I mean, you spotted it, so I'm guessing there might have been one or two in there that you might have heard in the past.
I think I'm just guilty of all of them, but probably the worst one is that sounds like.
Yeah.
Whenever I've been in a room with somebody, I mean, it says here that a producer's probably more able to say it to people, but I mean, with Duran, I used to just sit there and go, oh, no, you can't use that because it sounds like this. And I'd have like this kind of whole musical database of little snippets of things, and I'd kind of bring out tunes and play them to them, and they'd go, oh yeah, it does. So I think I'm rather guilty of spoiling their creative flow by doing that.
Well, I think the thing is, as we've seen, when it sounds like, yeah, I mean, as the human condition.
Maybe I've saved from a lot of lawsuits.
Well, maybe that, but the human condition does rather make you feel like you naturally look for patterns, don't you? And within music, certainly what it does go on to say is, it's okay to say to friends what the musician sounds like because they need to understand what it is. But to the musician, obviously, everyone wants to feel original. But I mean, I think the thing is also to remember is when you're doing that, if it sounds a bit like that, it's not going to be a carbon copy, but it's going to have an essence of it, which is is okay because it'll have a spin on it. I mean, if it is a carbon copy, then that'd be problematic, I guess.
Sometimes.
we want to classify things, so when we hear things, just to kind of get context and perspective on it, we want to sort of think, okay, oh, that reminds me of Steely Dan, or that reminds me of I don't know, Weather Report, or whatever it
Yeah.
is. We like to have some idea, and it is annoying, and I find myself I do it quite a lot. But again, it's more just to sort of work out what it is, and
Well,
once
because
I can work out what it is, I can maybe, I've got a little
shape
bit more
it.
context to enjoy it.
Yeah, but also I think if sounds like is okay, because if you go, oh, that sounds a bit like this, maybe in that case, what would be nice to do is to add some instrumentation techniques that sound world uses, just to sort of like take it in that direction or whatever. I mean, I guess you need those things. So I think that's perhaps a bit one for me. This, as somebody said to me, was, what's your backup plan? When my friend, I used to be in a band with a chap who was a bass player, and his dad was an artist, a significant art, quite a contemporary, significant contemporary artist. And, we were talking about what you're going to, because it was getting to that sort of leaving school time, and what you're going to do. I said, I'm going to be in a band. I'm going to make my living out of music. And he just basically laughed at me and got really uppity about it. And I got really cross with him, because I just thought, what's it got to do with you? You're not my dad, kind of thing. And I really got quite angry, and obviously proved him completely wrong, which was much more satisfying. Though I haven't seen him since. I would like to say, by the way, Michael, do you remember when you said that to me? You're full of, yes, a four-letter word. So that is. But I mean, I think even musicians might say, it's good to have another string to the bow, because I mean, as we all know, not all musicians can be musicians full-time and support themselves. It's a tough world, and it's getting tougher. So it's good to have something else that you can work on, maybe not a backup, but as a simultaneous, because then you can flip between streams of it, as fortunes change, I suppose. I don't know. You might agree there, Mark, or you might not.
I don't know if I do, actually. I think not having a backup plan probably made me get further than if I had a backup plan. So my backup plan, I suppose, in this country, the backup plan is the DHSS, or whatever it's called now, and
The welfare
unfortunately,
state.
that actually made me really lazy. Being able to collect a check every week and knowing that I'd have £26, I think it was, when I was doing that in 1983, knowing I'd got enough money to eat meant that I didn't have to make the money to eat. If I had to make the money to eat, I probably would have been out doing shows. I would have been out in the pubs with my guitar playing, or whatever,
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So that which would have given me more experience at playing live, and would have given me more. So I don't know if it's useful having a back. I failed all my exams because I wanted to be a musician, and I was so focused on that I didn't do any work on the things I was supposed to be doing at school. So,
But yeah,
I didn't go with the back plan.
Jumping in on that, you see, I think, well, actually, some of the points there are this thing that let me see the relevant ones, where people are going, oh, when am I going to hear you on the radio? Blah blah blah. This idea that making music has to, in some way, be for some commercial end game, rather than, the actual making of music as an expression, as an artistic choice. The fact that it needs to be validated by its kind of commercial, potential,
Sure.
and judged by its lack of commercial potential. I think that's something that could be a bit irritating, because, to be honest, my favorite music has no commercial potential, or tiny amount of commercial potential. So I think that's a bit annoying sometimes, that a music could be judged on those terms. If you're asking somebody, what's the chances of this being on the radio, or how could I improve the chances of this becoming popular,
Yeah.
then that's a different thing.
Yeah.
I think this idea that music has to be accessible to be value is, I would take umbrage with.
I would, yeah, I suppose that, I mean, my background is very much pop, and when I hear stuff that is just willfully obscure and very difficult to listen to, and impenetrable, I find I get quite uppity about that. It annoys me because it feels like such an enormous amount of effort goes into creating music, and listening critically and all of those things. And when somebody's just sort of obscured it with something other than the soul, because any kind of music can be appealing if it's got this sort of soul to it that makes you go, oh, there's something about that I like. But when that's all missing and it's just clever and irritating.
I have got this long-term project with a composer called Sebastian Goldfinch. We've been doing it for about 13, 14 years now, called Pork Ticket. And Pork Ticket's kind of intention is just to make just the most appalling music. But on the surface, it sounds quite nice. But at every musical sort of junction, it always makes the wrong turn into sort of... It just keeps you just taking you down, just the worst. It's very unsettling. And
how do you make
then
the
sometimes you
decisions?
spend two days solidly on this one track, deliberately to be as horrible and as unpleasant as we possibly could. But yeah, we have so much fun making it.
Yeah, I think we want to hear that, definitely. That sounds...
As you're going along then, so you come to a junction in the song, you go like, I'm going to do the bridge now, and then you go like, what's the least likely way it could go? What's the what would be really wrong here? Is that what
exactly? Just exactly. And just
it sounds a little bit like what I do, but I think I'm meant to be doing. I mean, my character is very much a contrarian. So if somebody says to me, Mark, could you go outside? I'll go like, no, why should I? Why should I do that? So I suppose my music writing's a bit like that as well. But
But surely,
I want to hear it.
Isn't the danger then? So you go, I'm applying all my musical nous and instinct into making it wrong. What happens at the end of it if it's really good?
Well, some of my friends love it, which is really strange because it wasn't the intention. But I think really, to be honest, we do it just purely because it makes us laugh. We have a lot of fun doing it, and then when we listen back to it, we just find it really funny. So that is its reason. Then, and I think that comes back to the point that I was making regarding these comments. That the motivation for making music can be so vast, and shouldn't necessarily be judged just purely on its ability to.
I suppose so.
Do you remember that English sitcom where or is it a film or something where somebody's trying to teach a brass band to play and they're absolutely appalling and they fall out with the conductor and they decide at that moment that they're not going to put any of their frills or special extra bits in and they're just going to play it as it's written on the page, and suddenly the band starts to sound really brilliant and everybody thinks that this person's cracked it, and they put them in for a musical competition, at which point somehow the band side with the conductor again, and then when they play for the musical composition, because they now get on with the conductor, they decide to put all the extra bits and frills in, and suddenly it becomes awful again. Have you seen that film?
No, I haven't. That sounds quite interesting. That sounds quite sort of philosophically interesting for a piece of music. I can't. No, I don't know that one. That sounds for a film. That sounds great.
I could remember what it was called.
Is it Rastov?
Sounds likely. Rastov. Has it got?
I don't know.
Has it got?
Can't remember.
Oh, okay. Well, there are a lot of things in here that are quite interesting. And what is also interesting, it's written by this guy called Ari Herstand, who coincidentally has an album that he's promoting out. I'll just play you a little bit of it because it's very. Let me see. Reminds me of Robbie Neville. So I want to give him a plug. Ari Herstand, brave enough, you can buy it on Bandcamp for $5, and it's got 17 tracks on it as well. Anyway, so that's fair enough. He gets a plug.
I love it that you said it reminded you of something. There was a bar into it.
Oh dear, I've just been guilty. I can't help it. You see, that's the thing. There is another one in there which actually I find really. Where is it? You sound like there's one in here which is also tricky, which is more that when a musician asks you what you think It's like, and when you go to a gig, it's one of those unspoken things. If praise or criticism is not arrives unsolicited, then fair enough. But when you ask for it, it's always very difficult, because often when you haven't said anything, it's because, you know, perhaps you can't find anything good to say or much good to say, and that's always a terribly uncomfortable moment when somebody sort of says, "What do you reckon?" And you've got to either lie or just say, "Oh,
You can always find something.
I suppose you can," but it's that uncomfortable moment. I don't like that. I find that
You go, I really like the sound of the hi-hat.
yeah, I liked your banter between songs, or whatever. Gaz, that's not something I've ever had trouble with you with, I must say. So don't look sort of. I wasn't implying that with anybody here. So anyway, so it's probably a good time now to bring in a word from our sponsor. And of course, afterwards, we got to announce 2 competition winners, and also we've got to have another competition. So you'll be able to win a copy of Isotope Brake Tweaker. Which if I press the button, hopefully the ad will play. So let's see what happens if I press it enough times. Here we go. Isotope, thank you very much, the sponsor of the show. The Brake Tweaker is designed by BT, Glitch Musician BT, developed by Isotope. It's not just a drum machine, it's a drum sculpting and beat sequencing environment, blurring the line between rhythm and melody. Yet you can, it's got a massive collection of break presets and samples. It's easier than ever to add a modern feel to composition. You can manipulate audio at molecular level, reinvent any beat by controlling rhythm and texture independently. So you get these amazing ISO rhythms and ISO patterns and ISO sequences, all sorts of stuff. You can see there's a lot of manipulation you can do. You can experiment with stunning content. There's a load of stuff from BT and various other beat people, including wavetables and what have you. You can sculpt your own drum sounds. You've got a fantastic synthesis engine. And if you want to check it out, you should go to isotope.com/brake tweaker. And as with all their stuff, there's a 10-day limited demo. Very, very recommended. And of course, we've also got winners, because the last 2 shows, the last live show, which was 370, and the other one, which was 371, which was Roger Lynn. Basically, the winner of 370, where we asked you to tweet out isorhythmic, I think it was. We have the winner is Day Polyester on Twitter. That's at Day Polyester. Interesting handle. I'm trying to figure out what that might represent, but I like it. Maybe it's the idea of wearing polyester during the daytime for your work. I don't know. But if Day Polyester would like to get in touch, either via Twitter or via email, just contact us via the form, then we will get the Isotope Fairy to drop a copy of Isotope Brake Tweaker in your inbox, and then you can download it for yourself. And also the week after, which was last week while I was away, there was no live show, we had an interview with Roger Lynn where he discussed the instrument and just interesting ideas about this 3D sculptural 3D control system. Very worth watching if you're interested in exploring that. I asked you to tweet out the hashtag morphing wavetable, because that's also a function of Isotope Brake Tweaker. And the winner of that was called No Soul to Sell, which is another interesting handle. And that's the Twitter handle at NTS. Sorry, the Twitter handle at NSTS Music. That's at NSTS Music. If you want to get in touch as well, then the Isotope Fairy will help you out with a competition prize of Brake Tweaker in your inbox. And while we've got your attention, we would like to tell you that there is also going to be another competition this week. What you have to do, you have to get on Twitter, you have to tweet out the hashtag, in this case it's Future Beat Machine. I'm sort of gleaning all of these phrases from the blurb on the Isotope site, so that's where I'm getting them. So tweet out hashtag Future Beat Machine, one word, to at Sonic Nick and at Isotope Inc. I will then search Twitter for the correct entries, and we pick a random winner from any of those. So once again, just to reinforce that, at Isotope Inc. and at Sonic Nick, you want to send the hashtag Future Beat Machine, and you can win a copy of Isotope Brake Tweaker. So once again, we thank Isotope for their sponsorship of the show, and if you haven't won, you want to check it out, please do. Right then.
I bought something with Roger Lynn's name on it.
Oh, did you? What did you buy?
Off eBay, look.
Oh, is that the M Audio kind of adrenaline kind of spin-off?
Black box. It's a guitar amp processor.
Yeah, it's the sort
I
of
paid
tempo thing.
£30 for that. So it's bloody brilliant. Really good.
Nice. Roger Lynn's a great guy. He's got a fantastic radio voice as well. He comes across really well. And yeah, sorry.
What a
Gaz.
nice
This is
chap
well
as
thought
well.
out. I just wanted an alternative to the Line 6 sound. I wanted to, have something in a box that I could just plug in and play through. It didn't sound like everybody else. There you go. See, that's contrarian again.
Yeah, no, there you go. Sorry, Gaz, you came in. Yeah, he is a nice chap.
I was just going to say that was a really terrific feature with Roger Lynn, and I was just really amazed by what a patient, lovely, helpful chap, and without any sort of ego.
I'm fairly sure a couple of times I said some really stupid things, and he just didn't rise to it. He didn't kind of flash any kind of "What are you talking about, you fool?" Yeah, it was a great experience, and he said he'd be happy to come back on again as well. Because I'm guessing now, obviously this product's been in development for such a long time that he wants to make sure that when he starts making it, because the stories were very interesting. I'll briefly outline it, because he started making it 4 years ago, but the touch surface he used, he had a prototype for, and then the company was bought by Google, I think it was, and they binned it. So he no longer had the manufacturer, so he had to make his own touch surface to work on it. And so that's why it's held up. So, good on him for actually doing it. Anyway,
yeah.
So what have we done? We've done those two. This looked good. And now this was interesting. This is the Pull iPad Lima device editor. No, that's not it. Oh, curses. Is it this one? I think it's this is it. Yeah, right video. Only 2 videos this week, and I pressed the wrong button. This is... let me see. I can get that. This is from X-Monster. And it's an interesting notion. This is what it basically... it's very simple in its concept. Basically, it uses the Lemur and Max for Live to create editors for the currently selected device on screen. Because normally, if you're using MIDI controllers, you've only got 8 parameters, using the macros thing. And what this does, it just basically takes any of the devices, and when you click on it, it throws up an editor which is full screen, multi-touch, in sort of Lima Max OSC, Touch OSC kind of style. But it's such a simple idea. I'm trying to think. I'm sure somebody else has done this, but I can't think who it is, because it seems like such a great, simple idea. I know, Gaz, you're an Ableton Live user, and Sonic Touch, we've kind of we've done quite a lot of reviews of things that can control live. And rather than trying to do everything, this is just doing one thing. It's 25 quid, I think. So it's not a cheap app, but just seems like a really clever idea, or a smart idea, perhaps.
Do you have to have Lima as well?
Yes.
Or will it?
Oh, do you? Hold on.
I don't know. That's a question.
I'm just going to check that.
What
do you need?
Yes.
Pull is
You've got to
the
buy
iPad.
the app.
You've got to buy the app, but I don't think requires. Oh, yes, it does. Oh, that's so it's 25 quid plus that. Right, so it's a bunch of templates. Okay. That's perhaps... Well, okay, so the requirements are a bit stringent, shall we say, but still...
It looks good. It looks very good. I was a huge fan, and still am, of the Touchable 2 interface, and that actually has all the Ableton Live devices mapped in a pretty good way. Not as good as that, to be fair, but there is something to be said that's all it does. So you work. That's the interesting thing with this thing here, is that you work with your regular system. You work however you're working. You might have your push. I'd imagine it'd be fantastic with push. So you work in whatever system that you do, and that is just there immediately responding to whatever.
Yeah. So you don't have to. So you use push to select the device, and
you
then
do everything else, and then you just go to that for the real time interaction. So in that way, I think it looks really good. And I guess when you look at the price of it, it seems a lot for a bunch of templates, when you consider that's more money than Touchable 2. I think Touchable 2 is about £17.50, $25, I think. Yeah. So so it seems it's quite a hard sell, I think. But for Ableton Live aficionados, and as I say, especially push users, I'd imagine it would be a pretty cool thing. You know.
Yeah,
But,
I think, you know, obviously it is limited to that particular setup, but it's just, I think that what I find interesting about it is if this could work, that this concept could work with anything else. So you just basically just go, well, whatever I'm doing, whatever's in focus, I'm sure you could probably program something like this with Cubase, because Cubase allows for focus devices, and as you've been discovering over the last couple of weeks, and if that could work with multiple other ones, I think there's something similar for Logic, isn't there? Well, in
There
fact,
is, yeah.
so it
Logic
does.
Remote.
So
That's free though. That's
right.
the difference. I mean, I couldn't justify spending 43 quid on this without having used it a lot first to make sure that it was worth buying. Because I'm always buying remote things that are supposed to control the computer, and then I end up just going, it's easier to just plug in a mouse and just do it with the mouse. And I don't know, I've got like that Novation thing with knobs all over it, which I never use, and which is supposed to auto map, and then I've got this other thing. I've got this. Yeah, one of these. That's my pads at the moment.
Oh yeah, okay.
Which is all right, but I don't know. I just never get round to plugging it in. So, and then I've got Touch OSC, so I can devise my own interfaces and put the things where I want them, and not be tied to templates. So I'd have to find out whether the templates were useful enough or not, which would mean I'd have to spend 43 quid just to find out, because I can't use the templates without the Lima thing.
That's tricky, isn't it?
And I'm reluctant to spend that much money when, as Gaz said, that the touchable thing is £17.49. So maybe that's the solution. And then, of course, you can map all the ASCII keys on your computer to different things in Ableton anyway, and I can just do that. And I can just press an ASCII key and make it do something, right? One final thing, actually. I just need to say one more thing.
Sorry.
Anything that's built in Macs is going to be a bit kind of scary, because most of the Macs objects that I've got tend to crash all the time. So
really?
I'd be scared about investing that much money in something that was going to crash all the time.
Well, it might.
I'd need to see it. They need a demo where I can try it, and then it can be believable, can't it? If I know that it works.
I have used Touchable quite extensively now, and if I'm using Ableton Live, I generally always run Touchable along with it now. That feels stable. It feels very good. I've been quite impressed with it. But I was going to mention, when you're talking about like specific controllers, I remember when I got my first iPad, I put a certain device of mine on. I thought, okay, this is going to replace the need for this. So I listed it for sale, and this particular item got more interest than I've ever had from trying to sell something secondhand. It was ridiculous. It was like 40 or 50 contacts with it. And the item in question was...
yes, the Alpha Track.
No, that's the Transport.
Oh, Transport.
And do you know what? I told people, I said, oh gosh, I'm sorry, it got sold. It got sold. I felt really guilty about it. Do you still subsequently, use it? I just use it. I use that thing so much. But because it is relatively limited, there's hardware buttons for things. And I don't know if you can see it here. It actually, I've got it on a mic stand. It comes with a mic stand mount.
Yeah.
So I just take it when I'm playing. I just have it with me. And I don't know why I'm talking about that specifically. Sorry, going off topic. But to have something alongside your regular way of working, and it being fixed buttons or fixed things, I think is great. So this particular app, I suppose, if you would dedicate your iPad to running Lima, running that and having it there, then I think it would be quite cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of this. I mean, as you know, the rest of our system is run mainly off an iPad, and that's something that since I got back from holiday, I just thought, you know what, I wonder if I could control our other stuff with it. And I made a breakthrough yesterday where I was getting buttons to recall memories in a Pantone Zilt, and it's all running because I was running another computer. Now I'm running everything off a Raspberry Pi, which is just deeply satisfying. So as well as tally,
I
it's doing all these other
agree with that though. I'm not disagreeing with that. I just wonder whether the templates that they've decided on would be useful to my workflow. I've got an inkling that they wouldn't.
I suppose so. I mean, I think you're right. I mean, it's the sort of thing that you'd want to maybe look into if you already had some of those constituent parts. That would make a lot more sense. But yeah, it's a bit of an ask to buy all of those things. I mean, obviously, you wouldn't do it if you didn't have Live already, because what would be the point? Because
Well, I've got Live and I've got an iPad. I don't have the Lima app because I've looked at it a number of times and wondered whether or not it would work for me. And I found that the Touch OSC app's really good, and I can build my own objects and stuff on screen and do all the things I want to do with that. So I'm sort of thinking, well, what would Lima give me that can't?
Yeah, and Lima
and then this is like another step in the direction of, okay, so it relies on having to have the Lima, and it relies on using Max for Live. And then I want to, and with Touch OSC, I noticed that when I'm doing things on the screen, sometimes the communication doesn't always get to the computer, or it arrives really late, or, the feedback between the computer and the iPad doesn't always quite sync perfectly. And I'm sort of thinking, I can't be doing with that.
Some
of that button I can press.
Some of that's down to setting up your Wi-Fi network, because we had an issue here where the communication kept falling out, and I manually changed the Wi-Fi channel in the router to another one, and it's been absolutely rock solid. Because what would happen is if there was any inactivity, it would just drop the connection. So what I did is I specifically set it to a specific channel, and now you can not touch it for 5 or 6 hours and come back and it still works. And that was because that was a bit of a problem, so particularly when we were communicating with all these different devices, everything running over RTP MIDI, over Wi-Fi network and Ethernet, it kind of gets a bit clunky. But this is actually it's starting to work a lot better.
Oh, okay.
So it is possible. Definitely possible. And the thing I like, I mean, I know I've been going on, the thing I really like about the Raspberry Pi is you look at it and just go, God, do I need a library for interpreting MIDI? And actually all I'm doing is just reading raw data in from a MIDI port and just going, right, oh, was that an 8-0? That's a note on. Okay, what's the next byte? Literally, if the next byte is this note number, then do something. So I'm not using any MIDI libraries. I'm just going, read the data in bit by bit. And I'm finding it really satisfying.
I got my first Pi.
Ah.
In fact, I got it, I think, 2 days before the Mac Pro, and I got to be honest, I've been enjoying it more than the Mac Pro. I really have. More excited about it. I've been really excited about this thing called Rachel, which is like an OS build for the Raspberry Pi, but it's designed specifically as an education tool for children. It has a curated Wikipedia built into it, and all the Khan Academy lessons. Sorry, I'm going really off topic here, but I think it's so positive. It's amazing. And basically, it's a 32 gig download. Just put it on a 32 gig SD card, whack it in your Pi, and then you've got an offline education resource. It's got all these medical encyclopedias, all this information about how to grow things, that food preparation. It's just all offline, all free. Whack it in a Pi, which costs about 20 quid, and you've just got you're future-proofing, your children's education forever.
Oh, I'll have to check that out. That sounds great.
Like that. Rachel.
Rachel for the Pi. We'll have to check that. We'll have to check that out. But I'm a big fan of it. It gives me a great deal of pleasure. What else have we got?
When you say curated Wikipedia, does that mean it's been checked?
It's 6,000 articles, and it's been curated for children. The whole thing is is an education resource for children. But beyond that, I think it's an amazing thing to have. Loads and loads of stuff.
Excellent.
Just amazing. I just think there's a lot of positivity going on in the world that often doesn't get reported about, and like that thing has kind of come about by a lot of very well-meaning people thinking, how can we spread education to the poorest and the most remote parts of the country, the world where there's, no internet, and this thing, the computer itself is, peanuts really. That thing is entirely free. It's quite a powerful powerful idea. Very empowering.
Yeah, no, I like that.
Yeah.
I'm all up for that. Let's get on to another topic then. That was the Paul iPad Lemur. Did you want to go into, because you brought this up ages ago and I've never got round to it, and this is somebody called Circuit Bird, who is she's called Luca Antonia Harvey, Kingston upon Hull. She's in the UK, and she comes from Hull, and she's one of the few female chip tuners. So she's got all these kind of chip tunes. This is 4 days ago. What's this one? This is called Doomsday Zone. I think she's doing chip tunes of games, which is a game tunes. Not all of them are. Some of them are done on the Korg MO1D. No, it's not playing. That's awesome. So let's try that one. How about this one going to play? Is anything going to work for me? It doesn't look like it today. I can't see that we're using all our network. So none of these are playing. That's great. Come on. Let's all give it good vibes and get the chip tune to play. But because I wanted to talk a little bit about what it's... So anyway, well, while it's sort of loading, let's say... let me see if I reload the page whether it's going to work, because maybe it didn't load properly. So while she uses the M10D on the 3DS, which was a kind of like little Nintendo. Was it like an MS10 or MS20? I can't remember now. It was the first sort of one of the first like musical apps outside.
I thought it was a Nintendo M1.
Oh yes,
that one as well.
M1D to create chip tunes, and she used Sunvox, an open source music tracker, to create sounds with FM synthesis. She has plans for. She's got a Commodore Amiga CDTV, and so she's. And it's just, I can't play any of these. This is really frustrating. I don't know what's going on there. SoundCloud seems to be not working now. That's awesome. Oh no, hold on. This is loading. Come on then. Oh, God.
Is it going to do it?
I don't know. This is thrilling, isn't it? This is. We can watch the progress bar. It's like having a 56k mode, and there's just nothing. Come on, then. Let's have it.
The thing with chip tunes, which I think is quite interesting, is the fact that it's quite popular with young people. And then when you actually think that these people were born after these, 8-bit computers had more or less died out, they were born well into the 16-bit computer age, or console age. So in a way, it's a little bit like people of older generations, being really into things like the Radiophonic Workshop and stuff before you're born. So it's just that sort of context, I think, that it feels like it's something exotic.
Well, the whole notion of chiptunes is quite an interesting concept, isn't it? Because you don't get any kind of real expression. It's really sort of on, off, and volume. You don't get sort of dynamics. You don't generally get modulation. You don't get necessarily filtering or whatever. It's very sort of raw creation. And I never really got into it, but it takes quite a lot of skill to be able to do.
Complexity of the tunes, isn't it? The tunes, there's a lot of complexity and a lot of polyphonic clever stuff going on. I mean, when people were making things with the four voices, having it just do lots and lots of stuff, a little bit like Electron's current sort of parameter lock thing, but you'd make those voices just do so much. So I think people who are really into chiptunes just love just trying to take extreme limitations and make extremely complicated music with it.
Yeah, I can't. Unfortunately, I can't get any of these to play.
Well, I used to actually have it on the Atari, a thing called a tracker on the Atari, and it had 4 streams, and you'd type in numbers to get it to play different notes, and then I would choose. I had a whole batch of samples that I'd made up where I'd got a kick with a hat on it and a snare with a hat on it, and then the kick and the snare on their own. And the hat on its own. So I'd kind of got all the different variations of drum hits, so I could do all the drum hits on one channel without having to. So when I wanted to layer the drums for polyphony, I'd have to think about, how I was going to get that to play out. And then obviously bass, and then if you wanted to do chords, I'd kind of make chords and sample them and then put them in the Atari. And it was like a real thinking process, a way of, and I've always had like this thing about I want to be able to create music on portable devices. So it allowed me to do that without having to bring everything else with me. And of course, my laptop allows me to do that now without having to bring everything else with me. But then before we had synthesizers in computers, and the first one, I think, if I remember right, it was probably the QuickTime,
music
the
synthesizer,
QuickTime
MIDI.
music synthesis.
Yeah.
So that was a sort of a revelation. That came many years after I was doing this thing on the Atari. But what I like about her is that she's stuck to that genre. So although I think the MO1D, when I had my QY20 and that MO1D thing came out, I considered moving and buying a Nintendo DS specifically just so I could run that program. But I think it can create much more complicated sounds than the one she's using, and she's stuck with the genre. So she's made everything still sound like it's created by Commodore computer chips, rather than go off into sort of, suddenly she's got this whole new sound palette available to her with the MO1D. She hasn't used it. She's stuck in her genre and continued to program things that sound like that.
Well, as I said, I'd love to be able to play some of this, but none of the SoundCloud stuff is just playing. It's just frozen on, kind of dangling. I mean, we are using a lot of bandwidth here, but it's certainly not affecting any of the other issues, apart from obviously this live stream. So I can't get it to play, which is a bit irritating.
That's a shame.
But I'll put links in the show notes, and you can check it out, because that would be cool. And also, yeah, I don't know, maybe the YouTube police. I haven't seen him in the chat room, so maybe YouTube police, rather than coming to the chat room, are actually doing something else that's causing us all sorts of problems. I doubt it very much.
I particularly like her version of Happy Birthday, because there's something about the timing of the way she's had to change the timing of it slightly to get it to fit on the grid. Which is really interesting, because it's still, as soon as you hear it, you know it's Happy Birthday. But actually, if you listen to it and analyze it, it's not. It's something slightly different. So.
I'm trying to find it. I mean, I can't imagine it's going to play, because nothing else will.
I can play this, Nick. Is that coming through?
Oh, yes, please. Thank you. Oh, that's quite complex, isn't it? Oh, mine's playing now. Hold on, stop. Mine's playing now. Or is that two? Ah! I don't know which one it is.
It's yours.
Ah, yeah, we got it. It's working. Crikey.
Excellent.
Can you believe that? So, yes, in case you're wondering what we've been talking about for the last 10 minutes, it's starting to play. Oh, this is a bit of... this is Michael Jackson, isn't it? It's a very, but I suppose the thing is,
okay, she's used the drums, but hey.
yeah. But I suppose the thing is, it just sort of, it's very, it's only one step away from auto accompaniment, that kind of very cold, straight way of thing. It takes quite a lot of work to actually be able to create a mod tracker that works okay.
Am I right in saying this genre is huge in Japan as well?
I think it may be, yeah. Well, because there's a whole thing about recreating game tunes.
Yeah.
Oh, it's frozen again. I don't know what the hell's going on with this. I'm sorry about this. It's just... But anyway, we heard a bit of it.
The SID station really is such a important element, really, in terms of chiptunes kind of becoming a name, chiptunes. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because when did that come out? 98?
Gosh.
It was really ahead of the curve.
Yes, I'm trying to remember now, because we did that whole thing with with Electron, but I'm afraid I can't remember.
Because when the SID station came out, I was really surprised that anyone would be remotely interested. Because what is it? It's the sound chip of the Commodore 64, but with kind of, that had been hacked open. Really cool thing, though.
Sorry, I'm just putting the winners in the chat room.
It does just have a certain quality to it as well, doesn't it? I mean, it's sort of, it's that grungy kind of, really hyper excited, because it's all those high frequency digital distortion kind of edge. It's almost like somebody's put it through an exciter and then just turn that to some insane kind of thing. So it kind of gets you. You're like, oh, what is this?
What else is there? Oh, that's me. I just fade to black. There's probably another show. Oh yeah, I found this. What else have we got? There's Circuit Bird. We did that. Oh, the Libra Music Notion. That was kind of interesting. So this is I don't know if any of you who perhaps use Office type applications. I mean, I used to use Microsoft Office for a long time, but now these days I just use LibreOffice. It's open source, and you get a spreadsheet. I use Google Docs. I just don't bother buying those sort of suites. And there's a notion here. This is a Libra Music project. Launched, and it's Libra Music Production. It's the same notion, but what it is more than anything else is a collection of tutorials on how to choose for working. This is for working with audio Linux. So let me see if I can zoom that in. You'll be able to see. So it goes through in detail the steps of creating and choosing and installing and distributing Linux, getting recording hardware, understanding the basics, which is Jack, soft synth and samplers, learning software and producing, and tools, and then exporting. And the idea is, it basically gives you, there we go. That's what I've done. I highlighted it. A way to get started, because this is actually something that's quite complex, because really now DAWs, we're sort of cut with these two pieces. As a beginner, you've got choices like GarageBand and quite simple production environments that you can just kind of press a button and make things happen. But if you want to go anywhere further, the knowledge gap in trying to get a system, there it goes, chip tunes back again. The knowledge gap is so enormous that there is actually a room there. And if you're going to start from scratch, there's quite an interesting idea of using Linux as a distribution. Because obviously now we've got Bitvig will run on Linux, and that's something I'm quite interested to know whether following these examples, whether it would be possible to get a system running and then just put Bitwig on it and just have it working. And this is the idea of this is to make a sort of open source information center, and you can subscribe to the newsletter, so get all the latest information. If you're considering getting onto Linux, it might be a good resource for you. And no, obviously, as people are using software professionally, it's a scary thought just to sort of jump in and start using this sort of somewhat untested environment, or at least it feels off the mainstream. I'd like to do it, but you could run Linux on your new Mac Pro, but it would fly.
Yeah. This is amazing. I think this is a wonderful thing, the Libra thing. What its intention is, I think is so worthy. I love it. I think the fact the open source, it really gives me faith in mankind, the whole open source world. I love it. I think it's amazing. And so the fact that the more people you can get involved, and the more people who could get contributing, the better and better it gets. Yeah,
sort of Wikipedia of Linux music production. Not a bad idea, really. I think it's easy to forget how much, because sometimes once you start to document what you do, it's hard to kind of realize how much inherent knowledge you need to actually get one of these sort of systems working and repeatable, and so that you can switch it on and actually make music rather than be an IT specialist.
Well, this is nice. If just by becoming like a central resource for this information, I just think that was the thing that was missing. It is. I'm incredibly intimidated by the technicalities of it, but when I saw this, it was sort of instant bookmark it, and I'm such a beginner in this world, but this was what I really wanted, really.
Yeah. Hopefully it's gonna actually
hand holding.
Yeah, absolutely, hand holding. Mark, I imagine you've probably had enough of setting up yet another OS to run a music system on. You're probably not looking for another time black hole.
I've got Linux running on a machine, and I've used Ardor. I don't know. I think, the reason I've got Linux running running on a machine is because I downloaded Ubuntu.
Yeah.
So if you ask me, Mark, do you know how to put Linux on a machine? I wouldn't have the faintest idea how to do it. But Ubuntu give you this USB key. You put it on the USB key, and then you follow the instructions. It reformats your hard drive, and lo and behold, Linux turns up on your machine. So what would be really clever, and maybe I missed the point, maybe it does do this already, is if they had a Linux build that just like you put it on a USB key, it reformatted your hard drive, it built you a digital audio workstation with whatever computer you had. This is what it does, right? Is it? No, not quite. But if it was as easy as Ubuntu and it just gave me my entire working environment and then I was able to start making music, then I think that puts it above simply going out and buying a working PC from Curry's or something where it's all installed for you and putting Reaper on it. Because why not that route?
There is the one for Raspberry Pi that's a little bit like that, isn't there? It's I'm trying to remember what it's called.
Not Pure Data.
It's got Pure Data, yeah, but it's someone's made a downloadable build, which is kind of like a looper and sampler, a whole bunch of things, and it'll run headless as well on
I
Raspberry
did try
Pi.
and set that up. Actually, I've got Antonio Bandera. Servando. I can't remember.
Servando Barreiro.
Did sort of try and help me with the Pure Data patches and setting things up, but to be honest, I just ran into so many kind of I really don't know what I'm doing. I don't have time. The time that I have to work on applications and getting things working has to be stuff that I actually need to use. I don't get time to do that. So
I agree. I mean, I don't want to read an introduction to Jack or try and work out. I mean, I kind of know how to use Jack on a Mac, but if it's the same, maybe it's easy. But I just want it all set up for me. I want to be able to take a disc, put it in my machine, and then I've got a digital audio workstation. And there's no reason why you couldn't do that. And I think that would really set it aside from everything else, and that would make it a plausible starting point for somebody who was a beginner.
Isn't that effectively what you get when you buy a Mac with OS X on it? You get GarageBand, you get all of those things. I mean,
oh sure, but that costs an absolute fortune, doesn't it?
Well, yes, but it's a machine, isn't it? I mean, it depends on what machine you've got. But yes, I suppose in terms of the notion of
so I'd say I'm a 15-year-old guy who wants to get into music, and I've got various routes in, and I could persuade my dad to let me use his Mac, which he uses for his architecture business, but he won't let me on it. Or I could buy a laptop from somewhere for £50 and put a CD in it and turn it into a digital audio workstation. I think that would be a cool kind of entry point for that kind of person, or somebody who's a busker who doesn't really understand computers a great deal, who could get their hand held into like creating this thing. You had a step-by-step, this is what you do. You put the disc in and do this, and this, and it turns this machine into a digital audio workstation. That would be cool. Otherwise, why don't people just go the Windows and then whatever shareware is already out there for Windows route? There needs to be something that makes Linux more compelling to use. I can't see an advantage to using it, I suppose. It's not been spelled out clearly enough. The advantage to using it is this. Yeah, we kind of know it's faster on the same hardware, and we know that it's got less kind of smoke and mirrors, and that uses less processing power, and we'll get more out of our processor if we use Linux. But it's still not enough to be compelling enough to get a musician to go like, that's the thing for me.
Yeah,
that's how that. I mean, maybe it's a marketing thing.
The thing on the Raspberry Pi is satellite CCRMA.
Yeah, I tried that. I just couldn't.
You tried that one?
I did try. I just couldn't get it to. I couldn't get it to work yet. And
Okay.
but quite often what happens with me is I think I know what I'm doing, so I just go, yeah, this all seems right, and I do it, and I'm missing some sort of specific thing that I didn't know about, and therefore it doesn't work. I did.
This is my experience too.
And then you end up in a kind of right. So now what I've got to actually be is a Linux command line sysop, so I could get, which is what I end up having to do quite a lot. So that tends to that tends to put you off a little bit.
Yeah, the Linux heads who I know are command line junkies, really.
Yeah.
And that is quite intimidating, isn't it? Because they just reeling off all this code, and I'm a little bit shy.
And because they've been doing it so long, making the assumption that you already know what they're talking about.
Well, and also you do get that level of, you write in a forum, I need to know, and then they go, they're very. There is a sense that it's like, well, look, I could tell you, but you're not going to learn anything, so you need to go and find out. So go and read this sort of stuff, and you just think, end of story, can't be bothered. Got to go and cook supper. Or
So that's the argument for having it on a disc. It's all already set up. You put it in your machine, it finds the right drivers, and it just works.
Yeah.
Because if I go out and I buy an Akai, I don't know, an MPC, whatever it's called now. I don't know what the model number is now, but that is a music making environment, and then I just got to learn to use that. So no updates, just a simple version of Ardor sitting on top of a Linux thing with a synthesizer and a drum machine already set up, ready to go on a disk or a virtual disk or a USB stick. I put it into an old laptop and then bang, it turns it into a music making environment, and it worked.
Yeah.
And then because everybody's using the same base system and there's not loads of different variations, then it's supportable, and then it becomes like a really interesting kind of platform for people to work from. Do you think?
Yes, I agree, and I
Like
think
on
there
off
were
of the
some.
tag.
There were no, but there were some. In fact, not that. I'm trying to remember the name. There was a chap doing it probably 3 or 4, maybe 5 years ago at NAMM, and I can't remember the name of the company, but they were doing it as well. And it was, they were starting to do. And I think I installed it on a machine and tried to get stuff working, and it was. Again, because I guess it's because of the unfamiliar side of things. It's just it has to be Ubuntuized, and that requires quite a lot of programming. When I say Ubuntuized, I mean, very simple drag and drop interface, icon, click here, this stuff happens, and that's what needs to happen. And I wonder whether or not there's enough of a requirement for it, because I haven't heard anything else about them, because they were trying to sell it, so they would sell an image that you could just download, put on a machine, and it would work. Well, that was the idea, but you paid for it. But clearly, they haven't become a massive organisation that has found that there was a lot of demand for it. So I'm guessing it's kind of one of those sort of scenarios. Anyway, yes, I found this great band called Braids. Just thought I'd share this with you because I'd never heard of them. Canadian band. They're just really good. I'm just trying to see if I can find one of the in kind. They're just a really interesting 3-piece band, and live. And maybe I'll play this one. Actually, hold on. Oh, this as if it's going to work. Why am I thinking it's going to work? This is there's actually a performance that they did on KEXP, which is a brilliant live streaming channel, and this is in Seattle, and this is I'll just play a little bit of it because I expect I'll get busted by the police, and it can, it's probably not going to work anyway, so we'll see whether or not. Here we go. This is really interesting. They've got a set. Yeah, there we go. It's not working. Of course it's not working. Why would anything work today? Basically, the keyboard player plays a keyboard and also one of those cat vibraphone controllers. Oh, come on. I don't know. What can I say? Normal 2K, it can't even manage 240p. There must be something up with the stream today. It's just one of... you know what? I don't think I can be bothered. Anyway, check them out. Braids, they're brilliant. They've got what they do is they have the vocalist, who's called Raphael. Has got a fantastic name, and she's got an amazingly acrobatic voice. And the drummer who plays live drums. And in any other scenario where you've got live drums and technology, he's playing very sort of quite jazzy drums, very unusual drum kit. It would sound really ropey, but he is so good and so inventive that it really does. It really does. Oh, look, here we go. It really does kind of come alive. Let's see if this is actually going to work. I'll click it back. Help me. I can't. Right. So, Braids, do check them out. Have you heard of them, Gaz?
No. And
No.
what was the channel that you were saying about? KEXP, is it?
KEXP.
Okay.
Oh, it seems to be downloading.
And they do like a video stream from there, do they?
Yeah, they do. I mean, something I'd like to do something like that here. Yeah. So here he is. This is, and this is just that. And it's just a great notion. This is all live. What's amazing about this? It is all live. And this is they usually have ambient beginnings, but then they get going. She's just got she plays guitar as well, lots of echo stuff. He's just so groovy. Anyway, I won't play it all because I will get busted, but do check them out. Braids. I don't know if they're working on a new album. The last album was, I think this was recorded in, looks like October last year, November last year, and I don't know if they're working on a new one, but they do gig. But do try them out. They are very, very good. So I suppose really that's probably all I dare for this week, because we've had a bit of technical difficulties. I do apologise for that if you've been frustrated in the chat room. But this stream will be online as soon as possible. And so you won't have missed all that much, just be a slight delay. Once again, we thank our sponsors, Isotope. Don't forget, you can win a copy of Isotope Brake Tweaker. All you have to do is tweet the hashtag FutureBeatMachine to @SonicNick @Isotope Inc. We'll select a winner, and you could have a full working copy of Brake Tweaker, or check the demo if you fancy that as well. We're going to stop while we're ahead because I don't really want to break anything else. But so I'm going to say, Mark Tinley, thank you very much for joining us this week and sharing your thoughts with us, including your fabulous black box. I think that's an awesome thing to own, the Roger Lynn.
Yeah, it's cool, actually. So, yeah, you're very welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mark. And I'm just answering the chat room. Solarphonics is asking whether or not I got the microbrute for myself. The answer is no. Quite simple, really. I would like one, but it was because it was such a new one. It was had to be sent back, and I've never found the budget to buy it again. But anyway, Gaz Williams also. They're in Bristol. GazWilliams.me. Check him out. He does good stuff.
Yes. Let me think. Yeah, I'm still waiting for my microbrute to come back. Actually, it went funny a number of months ago, and so it's been in the shop for quite a long time now. So, okay. One little thing I wanted to talk about very briefly. I got another bass.
Oh, good for you. Let's have a look.
No, this one's interesting. It's interesting because it's a new model, and it's got a function. It's called a portamento bass, made by Ibanez. It's got like a very long fretboard.
I see. Yeah, it goes right up to the
30
body.
frets. So it gives you the same note amount as a double bass, and it's got like flat wound strings, and it's got this new pickup that's called the Aero Silk. It's got normal pickups, but it's got these ones in the piezo, and they're tuned to make it sound like a double bass.
Oh, so you can
cool.
play.
And the thing when you play it, maybe I could just hang on. It does sound a little bit like a double bass, but it sort of sounds like its own thing. But it sounds amazing. Hang on.
Okay. Talk amongst yourselves. Well, let's talk amongst ourselves. Gaz is going to demo the thing.
So when he says it's tuned to be a little bit like a
EQ'd.
double bass, does that work the same way as the Line 6 thing converts my piezo bridge guitar into a Strat or an SG or a whatever? Or is
No. I don't think there's any digital processing. I think I reckon it's just some sort of filter on it, okay. But it just sounds. Okay. This is just the back pickup now. Is that coming through?
It is a bit, yeah.
Hang on. I'll turn the mic up a bit.
Gaz's turn to have some technical difficulties now. Hooray! I'll just sit back and I think, not just me.
Oops.
It's quite distorted, yeah. That sounds like it's distorted. Yeah, I see what you're saying. I can. I mean, even over Skype, I can tell that it's got a quality of acousticness to it.
It sounds phenomenal.
Excellent.
And it's quite a cheap bass as well. So it's just.
What's it called again?
It's called an Ibanez Portamento.
Portamento.
Yeah, portamento. Yeah,
Portmanteau.
yeah, like
Okay.
portamento on the keyboard. But yeah, sorry, that was a terrible demonstration. But
They'll probably be ringing you up for an endorsement deal in a second. Don't worry.
no, it's just I've been looking for something like that for 20 years, really. I've got an acoustic fretless bass, and I've got various other fretless basses, but this one, and I actually had the Line 6 one as well, which has got like a double bass sound. And on the GR, the
Right.
Roland GR55 has got like an acoustic sound, which sounds very good, but is limited because it's MIDI. But this thing is something else. It's amazing.
Great. Well, on that note, or on those notes, should I say?
Can I make one more question?
Mark, yes,
Chris?
of course you can.
I want to buy Pro Tools M powered from someone. I just want the disc so I can plug it into my whatever that thing's called. What's it called? Black box. Yeah, because apparently it works with Pro Tools M powered. So I've got Pro Tools, but I like to have all sorts of different ways of doing things. So if anyone wants to sell me Pro Tools M powered, send me an email. How about that?
Okay, that sounds
Please.
promising. I might be able to help you there, but I have to dig it out. I'm not sure. I don't keep CDs around the place so much now. Anyway, that's it for this week. Thank you very much for staying with us. If you've just been chatting in the chat room, then which seems people have, they've been enjoying themselves. I think the stream is about half an hour behind at the moment, but thank you very much for your for joining us. If you want to join us at No Show next week, we'll be back on September the 3rd, I believe. Yes, September the 3rd, which is the next Wednesday after the next one. So no show next week, but a show the week after. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching. Thanks to Isotope for the sponsors. Thanks to Mark, and thanks to Gaz. That's it for this week. I will now quit while I'm ahead and press fade to black.